الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. رب زدني علما رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير ثم أما بعد والحمد لله. Respected brothers, sisters, youngsters, elders, everybody, welcome to another lesson of hadith lessons, fiqh lessons, the fiqh of marriage, which we are covering now, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Today we are in lesson number 9, alhamdulillah, and in last week's lesson number 8, we spoke about some very interesting things, and the whole course of the marriage is very interesting for a lot of people, because it's of much benefit, inshallah. First of all, a quick recap on the last point that we left off on, in the last week's lesson, which was the conditions of the two witnesses. We know that from the primary requisites and mandatory requirements inside a nikah and inside a marriage contract, an Islamic marriage, is that there should be two witnesses. And so we were just explaining, and we're going through some of the conditions or the conditions of the two witnesses. And we said that we've done some of this, so inshallah we'll finish this off quickly and then we'll move on to the next topic. That the conditions, that when you go to choose your witnesses for your nikah, these are the conditions that you should be looking for. It's not necessary that both the witnesses be from the bride's side or both the witnesses be from the groom's side. What's important is that they have these conditions that we're about to set out now. First of all, the witness should be a Muslim, and Allah Azza wa Jal says that very clearly in the Quran, and it's also mentioned in the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that the witnesses must be Muslim of the Aqdun Nikah. Number 2 is that both of the witnesses should be intellectually stable and of an age of maturity, as in age of bulugh, should be in the age of puberty. So both in the age of puberty and mentally stable, mature in the understanding, so that they can understand what's happening, and if need be, if they are called to, that they can actually report and explain what they witnessed. Number 3 is that they can hear clearly the agreement and the proposal, or the proposal and the agreement, the ijab and the qabul of the bridegroom and the bride clearly. This is the condition, or this is the third condition of the two witnesses of the Aqdun Nikah. Number 1 was Islam. Number 2 was that they are mature and mentally stable, as well as of age of puberty, of maturity, as in should be baligh. Number 3 is that they should hear, the witnesses should hear what's being agreed upon, ijab and qabul. Number 4 is that the witnesses should be male, they should be two men. However, عند الحنفية ينعقد النكاح بشهادة رجل وامرأتين. In the Hanafi school of law, the marriage contract will be valid with the witnessing of a man, a male, and two females, two women, and same conditions, that they are mature and they are of an age of understanding, and so on. But the rest of the أما الشافعية والحنابلة فلا ينعقد النكاح بشهادة رجل وامرأتين ولا بشهادة النساء لأنه لا يثبت النكاح بقولهن. That according to the other schools of thought, it should be only men in the Aqdun Nikah. And so if you do follow the Hanafi school of law, then you should still try to make sure that your witnesses are both, and we usually do anyway, both male. And if there is a situation where you cannot find two men as witnesses, then you are allowed to have one man and two reliable baligh, aqil, baligha, aqila women, and one man as your witnesses. Number 5, the fifth condition of the witnesses is that some ulama and some scholars have made this a condition, not all of them. So some of the ulama have said that from the conditions, and it is preferred that the two witnesses be able to see what they are witnessing. So being able to hear as well as to be able to see, because being able to see specifies and is more accurate in recognizing what's being said and who's saying what. However, this is not a condition per se in the Hanafi school of law, and it is allowed for the witnesses to be not being able to see or be blind. Okay, and there is no problem whatsoever, according to the Hanafi school of law, if the witnesses are blind or able to see. But nonetheless, وأما الشافعية okay فقالوا إن عقد بشهادة أعمي of two blind people ففيه وجهان, that it is in the Shafi'i school of law there is two opinions about it. It's that it's allowed and it's not allowed. Look, the point being is, if you, without going into too much of the differences and why and all of that, it's preferred that the two witnesses are able to see, so that they can specify, witness properly, and also deliver and explain properly if there was a need for them to explain what they heard and what they saw. That was number 5. Number 6 is also a condition that's not agreed upon. Some ulama have made it a condition, others have not, which is al-adala, which is, adala means to be sort of upright, someone who is known to be a reliable person. Okay, that this is, and so some of the ulama, like the ulama of the Maliki school of law, the Shafi'i school of law, and the Hanbali school of law, they have made it a condition that the two witnesses are adil, and they are reliable, they are upright and following the rules of the deen, from what's apparent. You know, our job isn't to go and seek out, especially in this topic, or when you go to seek out your witnesses, you don't have to go and look and understand all their secrets to understand if they're reliable. If they're on the apparent, they're praying salah, they don't lie, they're reliable people, then that's the condition met, and that the witnesses should be also, or from the conditions of the witnesses, that they should be reliable, because the Prophet ﷺ said, وَشَاهِدَيْ عَدْلٍ, that the two witnesses should be reliable. As for the Hanafi school of law, they have preferred, because it's in the Hanafi school of, because it is in the other schools of law that they should be reliable, or adil or adala should be there, it is automatically preferred that they should be, so it taking into account the difference of opinion. And because the other three schools of law have maintained and said that the witnesses should be reliable. As for the Hanafi school of law itself, it has not made it a condition that the witnesses be upright, meaning even if the two witnesses seem to be apparent sinners, okay, their witnessing of the marriage will still be valid. Not that it's the best, but it will be technically valid. It will be technically valid. Nonetheless, okay, so you should try to make sure that the witnesses are reliable. And then 7th condition, which is not really relevant in our time and age, which is that they should be hur and not in the state of in the state of riq. Okay, and then we sort of, this was this sort of chapter of witnesses coming into a conclusion, and they should witness what? So these witnesses that we've just described and laid out their conditions, what should they be witnessing? They should be witnessing the ijab and the qabul, the proposal and the acceptance. The proposal and the acceptance, both sides, and not just one side, because just witnessing one side will not suffice for the witnessing to be complete. Next chapter is al-wilayatu fi zawaj, which is the guardianship. The 7th condition was, like I said, it's not really relevant in today's day and age. It's al-hurriya, which was it was relevant at the time where slavery was widespread. So if there was a choice between who should be the witness, a hur or someone who has riq on them, then it should be a hur and a free person in society. But again, like I said, it's not a relevant topic today, but it is in the books of fiqh, because these are the Hanafi school of law, and these schools of law have been recorded from a long time ago. Okay, wal-wilayatu fi zawaj. Okay, wal-wilayatu fi zawaj. The chapter of guardianship and the legal responsibility in a marriage contract. Now, this is a very, very interesting topic and a very hotly debated topic since sort of the earliest of times, because this is one of those topics and chapters where the Hanafi school of law have maintained, or the Hanafis have maintained, or Imam Abu Hanifa and his followers have maintained a very sort of unique position as compared to other schools of law. So what that means is, what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to guardianship, when we're speaking about guardianship in marriage, we're talking about that the guardian, as in the father, and if the father is not alive and not present, then the grandfather, and if the grandfather is not alive or present, then there is a sort of a list that we go by, and that will inshallah come to. We are talking about that in the marriage contract. In the marriage contract, there should be the female or the bride, her wali, and her guardian should be consenting, and should be allowing, and should be sort of okay with that marriage contract for it to be acceptable. Now, this is, to be honest, parents' consent and parents' blessings is something that's recommended, and something that should be sought both for the man and for the woman. The bridegroom should also be ensuring that his parents are happy with who he's choosing as his wife, as should the bride ensure that whoever she is getting sort of okaying to marriage with should be someone that her parents are okay with. Now we're talking about majority of the fuqaha. In fact, vast majority of the fuqaha and the jurists and the legal scholars have said that it is absolutely required and mandatory and obligatory that the bride's wali and her guardian are okay and allow the nikah to go ahead. Okay. As for the Hanafiya, according to what's known and what's the mashhur, if you like, there is some ikhtilaf within the school between Abu Yusuf and Muhammad, and this is detailed in the books of the Hanafi school of law. But ultimately, what they do say in the end is that if the woman is a mature woman, as in she's age of understanding, she's aqil, she's intellectually stable, she's able to make her own choices, okay, she's not foolish or is prone to making wrong decisions. If she is intellectually stable and she is of an age of understanding, she's mature, she's baligha, then she has the permission and she has the ability to permit and to okay her own nikah. Not to say, there's a crackling noise on the FB stream. Okay, 1 second. Thank you for letting me know that. 1 second, let me sort this out. Hopefully that should be better, inshallah. I've just taken that condenser mic off, and I think it's going to be do let me know if it is okay. It might be a bit more quiet, but inshallah you won't have the crackling noise. Okay, so what we're talking about is that the in the marriage, the wali, in fact there was a bit of a discussion with a few other ulama in a group today about this, the whole concept of wilaya in aqdun nikah. Vast majority of the scholars have said that the bride should have the consent of her father in a marriage contract, and they are the jumhur of the fuqaha, okay, which include the Malikiyyah wa Shafi'iyya and the Halabila and the Zahiriyya even some of the Shi'i school. If you can also confirm that, much better now. Okay, that's fine. I think it was the condenser mic. I don't even know why I tried. I think it's these new mics, they don't really work properly. My older one works better. But nonetheless, inshallah, as long as you can hear well, that's the most important thing, inshallah. Okay. Now, as for the Hanafi school of law, they've said that parents and the guardian's consent should be there. And it should definitely be there. But if in a case where the woman did go ahead and got married without the consent of her parents, then would that nikah be valid at all? Would it be valid at all? Or would it be nullified? Would it be cancelled out completely? Okay, here is what the Hanafi school of law says. You know what? Hanafi school of law, as in the mufta bihi, or what's the mashhur in the madhab, okay, is that عدم اشتراط الولي, that even if the woman decides to go ahead and get married without the consent of her guardian, then the contract itself will be legally valid, so long as the person that she chose to get married is not someone who is completely irresponsible or any match or a suitable match for her. When we say suitable match, meaning someone who will be able to level up to her standards, care for her, cater for her, and etc. Okay, this is something really, really important. Now, there is, of course, because this is a sort of it's a really important topic. There's a lot of evidences on both sides. But what I will say to you right now is that even in the Hanafi school of law, just because there is that that leeway there, the guardian, or even if that the parents, the parents' consent or the father's consent is not per se a legal requirement in the contract itself. Nonetheless, because of its clear emphasis in the Quran and in the Sunnah, it is extremely important nonetheless that the parents' consent and the father's consent be sought for the bride in the marriage contract. Okay, and in fact, being negligent and neglectful of this can make a person sinful. And so therefore it is very important that for the bride, that her father, and if her father is not present and not alive, or you know, or passes the responsibility to her grandfather, and there is a list that we'll go through inshallah, as I've said before, that the consent is sought. But technically speaking, if someone was to go ahead and get married, does that mean the marriage contract is not valid and he has no standing whatsoever? According to the Hanafi school of law, it's done. Okay. Now this is applicable and beneficial in today's society, in minority communities, very much so. How? We have a lot of revert sisters. They've converted to Islam, you know, quietly. So a lot of the times they don't know, the parents don't know. They want to get married to a good Muslim guy, right? And you know, they can't get their parents' consent. Or sometimes, you know, there's a marriage breakdown, and you know, the sister trying to get married, but her father is, you know, they have had problems with him, and he wants to just, you know, hold her hostage and say, I'm not going to get married you off now because of X, Y, and Z, because, you know, we have marriage problems between me and you. Inshallah, we'll come to that, the evidences. But in today's day and age, this is beneficial, and this is helpful for in a lot of the cases, and I've experienced this myself, where sisters cannot get their parents' consent or their father's consent merely because her mom and her dad had some problem back in the day, and he's not willing to come along and come to consent, even though the guy is a good guy, he's got good living, he's a practicing brother, and there's nothing wrong, you can't fault him, but he just wants to be, you know, in that way. So look guys, what I'm saying is, try to understand it. If you haven't understood it, rewind it. Majority of the fuqaha, vast majority, in fact all of them, you can say, except for the Hanafi school, have said that the wali is a requirement, and without the wali the nikah will not be valid at all. But the Hanafi school have said it is very important for the wali to be there and to consent to it. But technically speaking, legally speaking, if it did go ahead without the consent of the wali, then the contract could be done. Okay, but there could be sin attached to it. Okay, and especially the contract will be done if the spouse or the husband is a suitable spouse. Now let's go to some dalils. This is where it gets very, very interesting. استدل الجمهور, the Jumhur of the fuqaha, for their opinion that the wali is a requisite, must be without the wali, the marriage contract will not be valid at all. They have said, they have got so many evidences. Okay, منها أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أيما امرأة نكحت بغير إذن وليها فنكاحها باطل. That whenever a woman gets married without the permission of her wali, then her marriage is batil, her contract is batil. Her contract is batil. Okay, so this is a very strong evidence for the Jumhur of the fuqaha, and this is why vast majority of the fuqaha, because of the strong evidences, they've said that the wali is a must be requisite, and without it the nikah will be batil and invalid. There's also another hadith of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu, قال لا نكاح إلا بولي. There is no nikah. Nikah cannot be without the permission and the consent of the wali. Okay, and there are of course other ahadith in that similar sort of phrasing, similar kind of saying the same thing, and there are various ahadith. As for the Hanafis and the Hanafi school of law and the followers of Abu Hanifa, who have said that, you know, they've said what I've said, what I've just explained before, I don't want to repeat myself all the way again. They have said that it's really important for you to have the wali, for the guardian of the wife, of the bride should be there, should consent and everything. But technically speaking, if the marriage was done without the wali being present or consenting, it would still be valid. Why? Because of the following ayat and the ahadith. Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 234, فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي مَا فَعَلْنَ فِي أَنفُسِهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. There is no problem with what the women do in terms of marriage, regarding themselves, as long as it is done in a correct way, done in a urfi correct way, as in a way that's not completely unacceptable in society. That she did not go and get married to someone who's a completely irresponsible person, someone who will harm her, someone who will destroy her, and etc. So this is one ayah that Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying that the women have a right to choose who they want to get married to, okay? And there is no harm if they choose to do so. فيما فعلنا في أنفسنا بالمعروف, as long as it is done in a ma'roof way, in a good way, in an acceptable way, okay? Allah also says, فلا تعضلوهن أن ينكحن فلا تعضلوهن أن ينكحن أزواجهن, that do not stop them or bar them from marrying their spouses or returning to their spouses. This is of course in the narrative of talaq, but the ayah is still evidence directly and indirectly to the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal has given the women the authority to choose or not choose or consent to their marriages. Allah also says فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا أَن يَتَرَاجَعَا, even in the chapter of ruju', the choice has been given directly to the man and the woman, the wife and the husband. And there are also there are other ayat. Allah says in the Quran, وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا, the women have taken from you a very strong contract. Allah Azza wa Jalla has attached and the taking of the contract and being involved in the contract directly to the women, as in the women who are involved in the nikah, as in the bride. So these are ayat which are proving and sort of are evidences for the Hanafi school of law to say that technically speaking, if the woman did get married, and without the presence of a God, she must, in fact, okay, according to all of the school of law. But in the case if she did not, then technically speaking, it will be possible as long as the person is a suitable companion, is a suitable partner. The hadith also say al-ayyim أحق بنفسها من وليها, and there are also other hadith, and I don't want to go through all of them. Like this is supposed to be a fiqh course with some evidences, but look, there are plenty of evidences mentioned in Ayat Badaya Sana'ah here, which is very reputable and recognized. There's a whole discussion here, with the فلا جناح عليهما يتراجعا وإذا طلقتم فبلغن فلا تعضلوهن. He also gives evidence from in Surah Al-Ahzab. Allah says وَامْرَأَةٌ مُؤْمِنَةٌ إِنْ وَهَبَتْ نَفْسَهَا لِلنَّبِيِّ أَنْ يَسْتَنْكِحَهَا. If a woman comes and allows for her to get married and gives gives her permission, her own permission for her to get married to the Prophet ﷺ, then this is also permitted. Here it's an evidence because it's not mentioning any wali here, and so this is also is taken as evidence here. There is also another hadith which says that ليس للولي مع الثيب أمر, that when especially in the case of when the woman has been previously married, and the wali cannot stop her, okay, to choose from who she wants to get married to, as in technically stop her. Of course, you can encourage her and motivate her and try to convince her, okay. And al-aym is the woman who does not have al-ayyim, okay, is a woman who does not have a husband. She has the opportunity and she has the rights to choose and consent to her marriage. Now, this is all really important because a woman is given the full authority to make her decision when she comes to purchasing. Technically speaking, she can be a business owner. She can be so many things. She can be a manager. She can be a lot. She has a full capacity to choose and refuse and make decisions and work and have a career and all of these things in Islam. Okay, and for such a woman who is intellectually stable and mature and etc., she is also technically permitted and allowed, according to the Hanafi school of law, to consent to her own marriage. To consent on marriage. And of course, like I explained to you before again and again, so don't misquote me, the wali should be there, and it's all of the other schools of law have maintained this, and therefore the Hanafi school of law will also give excessive emphasis to this because these are also based on ahadith and ayat of the Quran and the Sunnah, okay. But technically speaking, legally speaking, if it did happen, then it does not mean that it is completely invalid. Now, the mu'allif here, the doctor and the professor who wrote this, he's basically saying that I prefer the opinion of the Jumhur. I will say to you, my friends, that this depends upon the circumstance. If the sister And if the woman, if the bride has her wali and awliya present, and if she is, her guardians are there, or her father's there, I mean, if not her father, then her granddad's there, right? And they are there, and she has the full capacity to seek their consent, then this should be done so. Similarly, in a way, okay, not technically, but similarly in a way, we should also encourage our brothers to ensure that that their parents are happy with who they choose, because a matter of khibra, matter of experience, matter of getting their blessings and their du'as, and this is all very important. I want to highlight one thing here. There's a lot of like these, I don't know, people say some stuff sometimes and it has negative connotations. You probably heard this, that, who said you have to get married to a woman and think about if she's going to contribute towards your family? Oh, the woman doesn't have any responsibility, etc., towards your family, towards your mum or towards your dad. All of this stuff, you've heard this before. But look, if you study the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, and if you look at the story specifically of Sayyidina Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu arda, this is a very famous story. We've covered in Riyadh al-Salihin as well. That Sayyidina Jabir radiallahu anhu was a young man, and when he went to get married, he went and got married, and he chose a woman who was much older than himself. Okay, and so when the Prophet ﷺ asked him, Ya Jabir, why didn't you get married to a younger woman, a virgin woman, a younger woman, because she'll be of similar age and you can sort of entertain one another, تلاعبها وتلاعبك, and all that's mentioned in the hadith, so you can entertain one another, you can be better companionship and etc. So Sayyidina Jabir radiallahu anhu arda says that I didn't want to, I have a lot of young sisters, and I didn't want to get married to a woman who will just add to being another woman in the family, young woman in the family. I wanted to get a mature woman, I got married to a mature woman so that she can advise and guide and mentor and be there for my young sisters who are under my care at the moment. So what does that mean? It means that he got married, he chose his wife based on what would be beneficial for his family circumstance. Okay, so now we have to take this into consideration, that when you get married, think about this. You're getting married to someone who you're going to commit to for a lifetime. Okay, you want to be in that relationship with someone who will be welcomed in your family and you will be welcomed in their family and you'll be celebrated in both families for a lifetime. The love and honeymoon period is a few months and a few years. Okay, but ultimately what will count is, is my mom really happy with her? Is my mom really happy with him? Are all of my friends and all of my, family really, family and friends have a huge influence on us. Is how your dad treats your husband year in, year out, week in, week out, whenever he comes, will have a significant effect, an impact on your relationship with your husband as well as with your family. So therefore, before you get emotionally invested or vested, right, choose the woman, choose the man who your parents and those who are really, really important, whose opinions are really important to you, your parents, that is, of course, okay. Choose a woman, choose a man, choose your husband, choose your wife, who will be welcomed by the whole family for a lifetime. This is much better. I'm not saying that this has to be the case, but this is much better. Okay, and this will be good for you, and you will enjoy that, and you will inshallah appreciate that for a lifelong and a long time. And so therefore, but we're talking about the particular topic of no, it's not compulsory for brothers to have a wali. Brothers don't need, the bridegroom does not have to have a wali, but it is very, very much recommended that if your parents are around, if your father's around, that you get their blessing and their permission and etc. Because this is all a part of birrul walidain. Sometimes we understand a topic and a chapter just by itself. No, Islam is a whole comprehensive religion. Just because it's not a technical condition here does not mean that you don't have to be obedient to your parents and make them appease and please as instructed in the rest of the Quran and the rest of the deen. You see, so we have to understand it as a comprehensive issue, comprehensive topic, okay, and other things are connected to it. I'm not going to repeat myself now, inshallah. Maybe I'll recap it next time. But this is the difference of opinion with regards to the wali and the requisite and the requirement of a wali and a guardian in nikah. If you do want to refer to it and sort of replay it, go ahead, inshallah. I will leave it up to here for now, and I'll see you next time. تقبل الله منا ومنكم سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.